Alright, what's going on, guys? The new update just dropped and we got a bunch of new content to go ahead and run through, so let me go ahead and do that right now. So the coolest and probably the best thing we got is the new wildlife spawner. So let me go ahead and run through the settings on this new wildlife spawner really quick. You can spawn a raptor, a chicken, a frog, a wolf, or a boar. You can go ahead and set the number of wildlife you want this thing to be able to spawn. The total spawn limit, whether that be infinite, or you can set it to it only spawns 100 animals before it disables itself. You can have it spawn on a timer so if you want to have them spawn intermediately over time. Spawn through walls, the spawn radius. You can enable it on game start. You can decide if they damage players or the environment. You can actually change their movement speed. You can change the max health they have. Unfortunately, you can't actually make these invincible, which is a little interesting to me. You can decide whether or not you want them to be able to be tamed, whether or not they should drop loot, and then you can enable them on a channel, disable them, you can spawn them, you can despawn them, you can destroy the spawner, you can tame them, you can untame all wildlife this thing has spawned, you can untame all the instigator's wildlife. When an animal spawns, you can transmit. When it's eliminated, you can transmit. When it's tamed, you can transmit, and when it's untamed, you can transmit. So let's go ahead and test this real quick. I've set up two little buttons and I'm gonna get myself some pets. Alright, so this one should spawn all 5 animals. There we go, and then this one should go ahead and tame them all for me. And it looks like it did, I think. They're all tamed. They all have little arrows over their head. That raptor is killing my wolf. And I'm a little confused why. Yeah, I'm not too sure why it did that. I guess the animals don't follow you, which is probably the most interesting thing about this, but at least you get to have little cool animals walking around in your island, and dope. Next we have the Offgrid Mutator. I mean, they've been making a bunch of different devices off-grid recently, and I think the Mutator is just another thing that needed to happen. Everything that's on this device is exactly the same as the on-grid Mutator, but of course it is now off-grid, so that's nice, and you can just go ahead and resize it and make it smaller or bigger to change the actual radius of this thing, which is also just really nice. But yeah, everything's the same, just really cool to have the off-grid version. The next is something that is absolutely something that has been wanted from a bunch of people. It is the Sky Dome device. Coolest thing about this device is not only can you choose whether it's daytime or nighttime, you can change the color the sun glows or the color the moon glows, you can change the intensity, you can change horizon color patterns that are appearing, you can make it so stars are visible or not visible, you can intensify the fog or change the fog color, and you can enable and disable it on channels, so you can have different times turn on and off throughout your game. So of course, when you place this device, this is what it looks like. You have this glaring sun in front of you. Of course, you can tone it down and turn it up. It's up to you, but right now I have it set on the sun. This is what it looks like when you have it on the moon. The moon, it's a giant moon. I don't know if it's supposed to be that big, but it looks insane and it's dope. The coolest thing about it, though, is we can make it glaring red. Watch this. Boom! Now we have a blood moon. I think that is so cool, and the coolest thing about it is you might notice there's like this circle around it, and these arrows pointing. The arrows are actually pointing in the opposite direction of where the sun or moon is facing. So if we go ahead and rotate this, let's just rotate it this way. The moon and sun will no longer be visible because I've actually put it there. So in theory, it should be down below us, but I don't think we can see that, so let me go ahead and fix that. Alright, so now I'm going to place it, and it should appear up in that area. There we go, because the arrows are pointing that direction, which is the direction the light is pointing from the moon. Of course, then we can also just change these. I'm just going to go ahead and change these to like a pink horizon, like completely pink, and see how that looks. And wow, that is very pink. It's like fog, but more of the off in the distance kind of fog. Let me go ahead and set this back to normal so I can see how it looks. And wow, that is interesting color combination. I actually did mess around with this earlier. If you set this on 100% horizon fog density, it is completely blinding to the point where you can barely see 2 feet in front of you. But the most interesting part is that it actually puts it on 90. You can't set this on 100% fog density, which is a little interesting, but kind of cool to know at the same time. And I kind of also glossed over it, but there's a color picker. I don't know why I didn't mention it, but there is a color picker. I think that's insane. I think all devices that have color options should have this. Insane update, love that. Now, for the sake of everyone, I think I'm just going to go ahead and delete that so our lighting can go back to normal. There we go. Now, they did add the dance mannequin this update. Unfortunately, this is right after downtime, and this is a bug device for me. I'm pretty sure they'll hotfix this in to fix it later. I'll put the settings on the screens now, But it's pretty dope. I think you can have it like imitate your dances, and you can change the skin and the color on it and stuff like that. It's a pretty cool little device, and it'll be nice for like people's events and concert maps they make. The next thing is equally as huge as the Sky Dome. We got the customizable light, and you might already be able to tell, but like this thing is glowing. There's light coming off of this thing like fireworks. Of course, it has the new color picker option, so we can go ahead and set this to whatever we want. Let's just go ahead and set it to green, because why not? And of course, you can make it enabled on all phase, create, gameplay only, game countdown, or none. On or off is the initial state. We'll leave it on so we can test this. The light intensity, let's go ahead and set that on 100%. And it's getting pretty bright. I don't know how bright is the brightest, but it looks bright to me. You can set the light type. Right now, it is a point light, and right now it can be a spotlight. It shines a little light in the direction of wherever you want these arrows facing. So if I do that, there you go. You got a little spotlight going for you. But if you do point light, I think it is more like a general kind of lighting circle around it, or a sphere, so all areas around it will be lit up. If I put a wall, the whole wall is going to be lit up and stuff like that. It looks like you can change the flare size. Let's go ahead and do huge and see what that looks like, and it just looks like it makes it more glary, and I actually love how you can customize that. It looks like it just actually changes the size of the light, which is really nice. You can go ahead and set a rhythm preset. Now this is currently set on constant, determines what light rhythm will be played by the light, if any. Oh, so this is going to be really good for like maps that are adventure things. Imagine walking through a Wirt Andrew map, and he has a short-circuited light going on, so you're walking down a hallway, and this light is like flickering every once in a while, like it's bugging out. I think that is an insane detail. I love this device the more I go through it. You can decide whether this thing casts shadows or not. So right now it is on no, and I mean, you can see my player. I still have a shadow. Let me go ahead and make this bigger. Yeah, so right now there is no shadow, but if we go ahead and turn that on, there's the shadow. I can see why that could be useful having that off or on. I think that's an insane detail. You can turn it on when receiving, turn it off when receiving. Toggle, which the toggle function is on so few devices, but it is such a nice setting if you can find a good way to use it. You can reset the light, you can disable it and enable it. It is kind of weird that the disable appears above the enabled, but I'm not going to question it. It's a lit device. See what I did there? Haha. Okay, moving on, we have, unfortunately, another bug device. This is the VFX spawner. There's a couple different effects you can do that are around the player. It will probably be fixed later, but for right now, it's kind of bugged. Here are the settings on your screen now. If you hop into the game now, it'll probably be working, but right now, for me, it's unfortunately not working. The next thing is the matchmaking portals. So if you don't know, every couple weeks, they've been removing portals out of the hub. I think they're kind of going in the direction of removing featured rift portals, and this change they did on the matchmaking portal kind of confirms that. Now, unfortunately, the setting isn't actually on this matchmaking portal, but if we go ahead and head back to the hub, and if we walk up to any matchmaking portal, you can go ahead and see there are two different things we can interact with. We can play with party and others, which is a public mode. That is exactly what it would do previously. Nothing's different about that. But then there is play with party private. That is like loading it up to a featured rift portal where matchmaking doesn't exist and it's just your people in your game. I think that's insane, and I think it is starting to lean towards the way of removing the featured rift portals because, in all honesty, the portals aren't really necessary here anymore. They're going for more of a menu style, and this setting right here will be huge. It will for sure be like an adjustment period, but I feel like it's just something that we'll eventually have to have done, and I think it's great that Fortnite's moving in that direction. Alright, now we got some new settings on just some random things. So the teleporter, there is actually a new option to skydive after teleporting. This is similar to like if you're launching off of a launch pad, you're in that skydiving state, or if you launch off a geyser, you're on a skydiving state, and it's similar to the air vent setting that is also skydive when launched from. It's the same exact setting, but it just happens after you teleport. Really great. You can like teleport someone up on a battle bus and they could fall down. They're gliding now. Cool. The conditional button is one of my favorite devices, and they've added a couple things to it. So there's 4 new settings. You can add consumed items to score, and then you can set the amount of score that each item gives you. So for example, if we have 3 items in this conditional button, the first item could give you 5 score, and then the second item could give you 2, and the third item could give you 2. So it's like, if you deposit items in this, the score is applied onto the player, and it's pretty dope. But you gotta make sure you have this turned on. I feel like we just got some new vehicle settings, but we got even more. The first thing is the max explosion delay. Right now it takes about a second before the car like completely blows up, but you can now set it to be completely instant. And then the lifetime after an explosion. This is the state where that car is like in that broken gray state where it's not really a car, it's just a random physical prop visual effect that happens, and you can go ahead and make it so that doesn't happen and just clear it like immediately. Next is just some explosion things. You can decide how much damage it does to the environment, to players and vehicles when it explodes. Pretty simple, but really useful. Next, we got a setting on the class selector. Of course, they want to make sure a lot of different things in this game are seamless, so they've given us the option to turn off the VFX animation that happens when this device is activated. That's that little blue effect that crosses over the player, and I think it's a really nice setting that they just went ahead and added. Now, we have tons of new settings on the speaker device. I mean, so many that I couldn't possibly play them all for you, but they've added House of Mirrors, Purgatory, Church Lava, Fairground Rides, Whole Screams, Underwater, Demonic Crows in Graveyard. They are all labeled kind of under spookier and spooky at the very end of this. I mean, there's a bunch you could go through. Just go ahead and mess around with them, but it's just nice to have some more sounds to work with. Now, of course, since you can tame the animals, you kind of need meat. I mean, a lot of the animals require the meat to be able to be tamed, so they've gone ahead and give us the meat. There we go. There's the meat, and of course it is health if you need to eat it for yourself, or you can feed it to the animals to tame them in a general game, whether that be on a channel or you can use the meat to tame them instead. It's kind of up to you, but yeah, just a nice little another item we have in the game. Additionally, we have a huge buff to the attribute trigger. You can now make it so this checks for min player score and min team score to be up to 10 million score. Before, this was max like 15, and now we have all these increments to work with. This is great for like Tide Tycoon. I could make it so I check for 100,000 score for a player to be able to do something, and I think that is a god tier setting to have on this device. The next thing to note is the ring gallery. Now you might be thinking, what do you mean, Dom? We've already had this gallery for so long. Well, there's one thing new that you might not know about. You can now customize them. Interacting with the building block will give you this screen where you can decide where it starts in an enabled state, a glow state. You can enable, disable it, show the original material, or change to a metallic material when receiving. If you're wondering what this means, basically disable it, that prop is now gone. Enable it, that prop is now back. You can decide whether or not you want this to glow and flash glowing on a channel. You can make it go metallic and then back to glowing. You can make it turn invisible and visible. It's just a setting on these you didn't think we would need, but it's kind of useful that we do have it. And of course you can go ahead and set it to enabled or disabled. It is kind of up to you, but really great little feature. Now, apart from devices, we even have new galleries they added right away. This is pretty different from what they normally do. I actually wouldn't be surprised if they took this away, because it's usually added the week after the update, but we have it, so I'm going to go ahead and go through it. It's a lot of the Believer Beach alien stuff. I mean, we got these cool little lounge beach chairs, which are dope, and there's like sandbag game things. We got a nice little telescope, which I think we already have in a couple other galleries, and of course some more just balloons, but these have aliens on them. And it looks like they even have this little board you can bounce on. We have new trucks and new little food stands. You got more things you can bounce on. I'm doing this all unintentionally, but it's kind of cool. You got a nice little alien floaty guy. He's kind of chilling. You got all these like UFO stand things, which are pretty interesting. I don't really know what you would use these for, but I guess if you're making an alien map, this might come in handy. This is pretty cool. You got like an animated screen kind of stand going on here. This is pretty dope. I don't really, again, know what you would use it for, but you know, it's always nice to have random props. You never know when you might need them. And then of course we have more containers, and I think these just come with like more unique kind of sprays that are normally on them. Looks like we got some paint stuff, little paint buckets and little paint bottles on the floor, which is kind of dope. I don't think we have those before. We also just have a normal broom. I like the little tiny props. Those are always really nice. Over here, it looks like we just got some new floor styles and like street sidewalk roads that have little alien graffiti marks on them, which are pretty cool. Nice little rocket ship. Looks like we got some like buildings and walls with some stars on them and some other graffiti on walls, like murals and stuff, which are pretty dope, and cool little stairs with these green accents on them, which is kind of cool. Of course, we got some more alienated stuff, so we got like the new plants and trees and bushes and stuff, which are pretty interesting. And it looks like this is kind of like purple moss. It doesn't really have a hitbox when you're looking. Oh, I guess it does. Interesting, but it definitely is an interesting kind of moss. It looks like you can go through it. Oh, that's kind of cool. You could kind of make like a little secret passageway, and I think that could be really dope for your map. It also seems like these kind of make sounds. They're making some like creepy possessed sound, or like you're in some like haunted mansion. That's kind of spooky. I didn't even see this guy before, but it's literally like a flailing around alien guy. I love these. We have in another gallery those like little llama floaty guys that stand outside of like the supermarkets and stuff for like when a grand opening happens kind of thing, but they don't flail this much. I think this is dope to have this thing flail this much. They also have like this smoke device again. I mean, this is in a couple other haunted galleries, but it's kind of cool to see it here as well. Now, unfortunately, there was a sword that was leaked, but it doesn't seem like that's in creative yet, but a melee weapon would be huge, and I'll make sure to make a video on that when that does get released. It really is amazing how much stuff we got this update. We got prefabs and like 5 new devices and a bunch of new extra little settings. We got a whole revamp to this customizable light gallery, a little new meat item, and just, it's insane. This is a dope update, and I just can't wait to get into it.